let me introduce you all to Ashley Holmer, right? Yeah, Ashley Holmer. She is the founding executive director of the Red Sweater Project and also the CEO of Red Rhino Tours. Ms. Holmer holds a BA in psychology and early child development from Willamette University. She is a recipient of the university's Distinguished Alumni Citation and was inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame for women's soccer. Ashley has been featured on Voice of America, Zero to Travel, has garnered the support of the Portland Timbers Football Club of Major League Soccer, and has been featured in the Rotary magazine. Everyone, please welcome fellow Rotarian Ashley Holmer.
Woo! Thank you so much. The good thing is I have pictures to accompany the stories. So Emily's gonna start sharing. So I started, now I'm a Rotarian, which is really great. So yeah, I'm one of you guys now. But back when I started, I moved to, following graduation from college, I had played soccer in school. And along with my twin sister, moved to Tanzania in 2005. She had spent a term abroad in Cape Town, South Africa. She went to Middlebury College in Vermont, and there was like a sister program. And so she had wanted to, just travel abroad, and really enjoyed it. And so following graduation, we both moved back to the Portland area, which some people don't know is called Soccer City, USA. I'm actually just adjacent to a little company called Nike, if anyone's ever heard of it. And so there's a lot of history here with regard to soccer / football. It's what they call it on the Nike campus. But soccer was pretty much my life, and we were coaching young girls teams throughout the Portland area. And we thought, hey, we're young. Why don't we head abroad and see if our skills can be utilized in other places where there are not a lot of female athletic role models. So we found an opportunity where we were able to coach at a secondary school level. So Tanzania follows the British system, which is primary school is standard grades, like standard 1 through standard 7, which is like kindergarten through 6th grade. And then secondary school is forms 1 through 6, which is like grades 7th through 12th. And so we were teaching English and sciences at a community school at the secondary level, and then also coaching the students, which then, of course, we weren't just coaching just our students, we were coaching all the younger students at the primary school. And when we're both like FIFA certified. And so when that became known that there were like certified coaches nearby, even though they were girls or women, I guess we could say, the word kind of spread. So spent the year living in a village, no electricity, no running water, bucket showers, pit toilets. But we did live in a house, in a proper house on the school campus. But there was no electricity, and just lived there for the year and lived in the village with the community members. If you needed a cup of sugar, you had to learn it in Swahili and learn it in the tribal language of Maasai. And so we became fluent in Swahili. And then that's how we spent our year. And as I obviously started to get to know my students, we were often invited over for loads of hot tea, and food that you wouldn't eat so much, but we would visit our students' homes and got to meet their families. And they were kind of big because Maasai do practice polygamy. And so this is my student Langoy's immediate family. So he has his mother and his other mother and his other mother and his other mother. And so when learning about the difficulties of why I found out that he was the only child in his family who was attending school, it was the discussion with regard to that government schools were not providing the ability for subsidizing school fees. So in Tanzania, primary school fees became subsidized in 2002, and huge influx of students flooded into the schools. But the secondary school was not. And those mostly because there's so few of the schools, they're only in more urban areas and they're boarding, and that costs about $500 per year. And the average family is earning about $2 a day. So you'd have to basically spend your entire income to send, annual income to send one child to school. And it's basically unattainable for about 90% of Tanzanian youth and Tanzanian families. So in this situation, Langoi was the oldest. And so he was the first oldest boy, and he was able to go to school. So also seeing the situation of what the students were experiencing, I also was coming across local primary schools, and the classrooms were dilapidated and they were falling apart. There were no resources. There are like wood floors and the chalkboards. I think we have a photo of that. Yeah. And so this was just the situation that we were like, that was presenting us at the primary school level. This was not our secondary, like the school that we were teaching at. But it was just absolutely shocking. We like to complain about lack of education or, lower levels of education in our country. But this was just, incredible. There were, and classes, we would walk in and there would be goats, like using the classroom as their toilet. I mean, it was just like, it was incredible, to see these kinds of just drastic situations that were happening. And then the other issue was teacher truancy. So teachers just don't show up, honestly. But then when they do show up, of course, there's all this overcrowding. So you have, even at the primary level or pre-K for, or like early entrance, early childhood education, three children are sharing a pencil and 5 children are sharing a textbook. And the teacher is clearly overwhelmed. So this was the situation that was presented to me, and I was like, this doesn't seem very tenable. Let's do the research. So I started looking into some of the statistics of what is happening in education in sub-Saharan Africa, and basically found this research. And I don't know if you can read it, but Tanzania is all the way at the bottom at less than 1%. And what's even most, I think the word is disgusting about this chart is that it doesn't even go up to 100%. It actually only goes up to 50. So majority of sub-Saharan African countries are not even remotely close to educating a fraction of their population of girls, especially. And that is due to a lot of cultural reasons. But I see that my blinds are lining my face here. Sorry, excuse me. And so, but again, I was trying to research and find out like where we could be providing the most impact. And so when I looked into what the studies that had been conducted thus far, basically what it showed was that when in the developing world, when socioeconomic standards are kept the same, the higher economic rate of return when boys and girls both finish primary school is for boys. That's at the age of like 12, like 11, 12, 13. That's when boys head out into the community. They finish primary school and they seek unskilled labor, right? So they become taxi drivers and they become tailors and manual labor, farmers working at shops. But at that same age, that is when girls become married off and just start working in the home and start having children and homemaking and tending their families. And we don't, and as a world, we don't really tend to attribute economic factors to the business of homemaking, do we? So the higher economic rate of return, what has been determined to be for boys. But when you actually hold those same SES standards, the same for finishing secondary school, the higher economic rate of return is actually for girls because they actually reinvest their earnings back into their family, family and community, upwards of 90%, where it's found on average, men only reinvest about 35 to 40%. So it became clear, and basically the statistics are showing that putting girls through secondary school has the most impact in alleviating global poverty than anything else. So we can build all the clinics, we can build all the roads, we can build all the water tanks and all the stuff. But if we're not putting girls in school, then we're not getting the highest economic rate of return for our investments. But obviously there are roadblocks. And so in the communities where I've been working over the last 15 years, we're dealing with families and parents who never step foot inside a classroom. And often it's a very elder paternalistic dominated society. And so it's the men who are making the decisions about not sending their daughters to school, and that what we call opportunity cost that's lost when they put girls in school versus what they normally do with their gender specific tasks at home, which is fetching the firewood, fetching the water, washing, cleaning, helping with the younger children, all the cooking, all, hauling any other goods, working at the shop, working in the farm. All these things are all part of managing and helping out a family that is usually living day to day, usually living meal to meal. And these are just priorities for a family that's learning to survive. So often it's common and easy for us to judge what families are doing with children, and that always works really well when you go into a community and tell them what they should be doing with their children. But these were the types of people that I started to work with and speak with about the opportunities that that could happen when we start to educate girls through the high school level and give them the opportunity to provide careers and hopefully some sort of return on the long-term investment versus short-term investment of unskilled labor and working in the home, and a dowry that would help would provide obviously subsistence for the family. And so in 2005, the villagers of La Cheyenne offered 20 acres of land to build the Orcasua School. And then in 2011, we were offered 15 acres of land on which to build the Mungere School. And one of the things I like to highlight is that we don't build schools because it makes us feel good. We build schools because the communities ask us to. So it is a hand-in-hand partnership. I sit down and my staff sit down with the community members, and we will even pull up a table in the middle of a cornfield, and we will sit and we will talk about, dreams and ideas and what we want to do for development and how the community is going to invest and support the school and serve on committees and be a part of with regard to the development of these initiatives. And so I, at the ripe age of 25, I was crazy and I said, yes, we will we'll work on these projects. And so the Orcasua School opened in 2008 and the Mungere School opened in 2012. And we now have over 100 students in the school, and everything is done by hand. We hire local labor and work with local designers and builders. And as you can see, our classrooms are a little bit different than your average Tanzanian classroom. And we make sure that they are sized appropriately. And we make sure that our teachers show up each and every day and they teach all day, every day. So, which is a little different than the local model. So 15 years later, we now have students in red sweaters. And but these are all opportunities that they would have never been able to pursue before. So we, through our scholarship program, we subsidize education so that the families only pay $15 every year for the entire year. And then the organization covers all of the remaining costs. And that is through donations, but that's everything that covers food, 2 meals a day, and it covers uniforms and anything and everything, shoes, paper, pencils, all their textbooks, covers teacher salaries and all of our development. So back in 2018, we received, you guys are talking about a global grant, but we actually were lucky enough to receive a donation, a matching district, well, through our clubs foundation. But we needed to expand and also add more classroom space and also science laboratory space. And so we were given a grant to start new construction on a new building. And this was done through a 3-way partnership. So we had a Rotarian who was interested in, who had a mother who had passed away and had been involved in education and also been involved in certain initiatives in Africa, and wanted to make a dedication, and so made a gift of $20,000, and then our foundation matched the $20,000, and then I was actually able to find another seed contributor, and so 60,000 was able to put this entire project together. Again, laid the building brick by brick. We don't use any machines. We use good old masonry and tried and true methods for locally. And then we had 14 members of the club come and actually paint and dedicate the building, and came over and worked on a service project on the campus. And so this allowed us to, even just like this small project allowed us to expand our entire school student body by a third. And so, yeah, that started in 2012. Our first graduating class was in 2016. We've now had 6 graduating classes, so we have over 75 graduates, and we now have over 120 students in the school. None of these students would be in school today if it weren't for Red Sweater Project, which is really just really exciting. So now we have students who are starting to study abroad and who are now heading into university. And we have our Beyond program, which supports them so obviously once they finish high school, it's not like they're finished with their journey. And so we also support them in whether it's applications and resumes, also sending and helping them attend interviews for jobs, as well as for a school admittance to different programs. But we're not done yet. So we're still constructing. And so hopefully we're going to be, I was mentioning before, put in that gold grant. We hope to increase our ICT to get devices in the students' hands. COVID's been interesting because we actually had to do paper and pencil distance packets. I know everyone's been talking about the ridiculous, the craziness that is Zoom and devices, but we don't have devices. We don't have electricity. So, in the village, none of our students have electricity to their homes. And so we have to do everything pencil to paper. But our hope is that we will, through hopefully a global grant and through some increase in our solar system, that we'll be able to provide that. So our goal is to expand the campus. Right now we have about 200 students who apply for 40 spots every year. And so right now we can't say that we're fully supporting the community. And so I hope to one day that we'll be able to expand and be able to say that every student will be able to accept all eligible students in the community. And part of that is part of our sustainable funding plan, which started when I became a tour operator. Basically, we found that we had folks who were coming. We're right basically on the doorstep of the Serengeti. We're at the base of the Great Rift Valley Escarpment, which is, if anyone's heard of the Serengeti, it's basically the greatest wildlife viewing in the world. So if anyone's been to Tanzania, they know what I'm talking about. But it's really, really incredible. And so we've actually had the opportunity and the pleasure of hosting a handful of Rotary groups and Rotarians on campus, coming, hanging with students, but then also investing in and heading on safari. And then all of the funds from the Red Rhino tours heads back into the program. So 100% of everything that's owned, Red Rhino Tours is actually an LLC of the Red Sweater Project organization. And so everything goes back into the programs. And so that's really exciting. So Tanzania is an amazing spot. I always tell every Rotarian who I talk to, if you're ever in the area, please come and say hey. Whether it's climbing Kilimanjaro, which is the tallest freestanding mountain in the world and the tallest mountain in Africa, or being on the beaches of Zanzibar, or just coming for the wildlife or the cultural tours. We put together basic personalized itinerary. I think we have a picture of that personalized itinerary. Where we can put things together and just make it, we can cater it to what anyone is interested in. It's a really, really wonderful destination. It's a wonderful country. If anyone's talked about, if you know anybody who's visited, just the hospitality and the warmth of the people. I was supposed to be there 1 year and now I'm on year 15. So I definitely overstayed my welcome and have loved it. But and normally I would, right now it is, let's see, it's 5:40 a.m. in Tanzania. So normally we'd actually have our staff give a presentations, because I haven't been there in a year, which is the longest I've actually not been in Tanzania. And so, but we have a live update from our staff on the ground in Tanzania. So this is Allison, our Director of Teaching and Learning, and Sheb, who's our Operations Manager, to give you an update from the school on the ground.
I came actually in January and started out as the English as a second language teacher, working with our beginning students, our Form 1 students, and helping them prepare for school in English. And so I spent 6 weeks with them doing nothing but English all day for students. And they and got to really get to know them, got to know Red Sweater Project, fell in love with the organization and the students and with Tanzania and our staff like Sheb. And so when the opportunity came for me to stay and to be the Director of Teaching and Learning, I jumped at the opportunity. Basically what that means is I'm overseeing the students, I'm overseeing their progress, but I'm also helping our teachers develop new skills and help them grow as teachers, which to me is such a privilege because I get to serve two groups of people, our students and our teachers. And I thought it might be nice if you got to know one of our students. His name is Kawia. And he is one of our Form 1 students. So he just started with us this year. And he is actually one of our oldest Form 1 students. He just turned 18 this summer in June. And when Kawia first came, and I got to spend a lot of time with him and the other students in Form 1, he didn't have this huge smile that you see in his picture. He was so shy. He came into school every day with his head down, with his shoulders hunched. He sat in the back of the classroom and didn't participate. If the students were playing games, he usually sat on the sideline unless someone came and specifically brought him to join in. And I was really worried about him. I was worried about his progress and his confidence as a student. And then coronavirus hit, and we had to close school. And I was really worried for Kawia. Kawia is one of our Maasai boys. He's from the village there in Mungere. And because he's so much older, he has already gone through his manhood ceremony. So he could leave school and start a family if he wanted. And I was very concerned that during the extended break for school closure, that he would be pressured to leave school and to give up. And I was really worried that he would be discouraged enough that he would do it. During the break, we worked with our teachers to create learning packets that we distributed to all of our students. As some of you know, our students don't have internet. There's no Zoom classes. There's no online learning for them. So our teachers worked so hard to create physical packets so that our students could continue to learn during the break. And Kawia was one of the first students to turn in his packet. He completed it, he did all the work, and when he came back, he really started to change. You could see the influence that our staff has had on him. He walks with his head up, he smiles and laughs, he joins in the class, he sits in the front and participates. During all of this exam prep, he actually scored the third highest overall grades of all of the Form 1 students. And he was at the very bottom in March when we were when we left. And so it shows you not only his work, how hard he's worked, but how much influence our staff has had on him to help him, not just academically, but to gain confidence in himself and to grow as a student. It's pretty amazing.
My name is Sheb or Shabani. I'm the operation manager of Red Sweater Project. We work as a team. We are a good team. My responsibility there is to deal with the campus. We have a garden and we keep rabbits. In the garden, we grow banana and greens. We wouldn't be able to do all of this, but we just got help of building a water storage tank, which can take up to 150,000 liters, which it has been real helpful and save us water for everything at the school campus. We wouldn't be able to grow bananas and grains without having water, or keeping rabbits without having water. So this has been really helpful since, like, during the rains, during the dry season on our village, there is no water at all. So this has been helping us to run everything with the water and expanding our garden. And our goal is to be able to grow enough food to feed all of our students, to have greens at least 4 times a week, because now we have only we feed them 1 time in a week, greens. But we have a goal to expand our garden so that we can feed everyday greens, since they are really nutritious for the students. Also, we keep rabbits. Um, there are so many things, so many reasons why we really consider this project to be expanded around the community. First, the rabbits from born to be eaten, it takes only 10 weeks. You don't have to waste your whole day watching them. You just put some grass in there. You just put your water, and you leave them alone for the rest of the time. And you don't have to wait for 5 or 6 years for them to be ready to sell them at the market. So we have just started to teach our students, and now the community has just become interested with this project, that they see the importance of it, because you can eat meat and you can still sell the skins around the street for making shoes or making some other decorations using rabbit skin. We already have some parents who came to our school and asked how they can start the project, and we have been giving them so that they can start the project. And our students already have it at home. The ones who were real focused on it, they will come to help feeding them, give them water. We already gave it to them, and now they have their own rabbits at home. Some they sell it to buy uniforms. They slaughter it for meat. So it has been really good project. And now we already expanded the building. We want to keep more than 100 rabbits. So at least we can have 1 time or 2 times a week to feed to the students. That's are the updates to our school campus.
So as you guys can see, it's not, hold on, I know you like to look at me really striped through my sun that's coming through my window, but I guess it's my zebra stripes. I'm just trying to be local. Anyway, so as you can see, we're not just a school campus. It's projects, it's economics. So we're even giving food and projects that are back to the families, which is really exciting. So we're just gonna cue a video, and then if you guys have any questions, love to hear them. The reason an organization like Red Sweater Project exists is there's just such a lack of educational opportunities in places like rural Tanzania. There are
just aren't enough institutions, there aren't enough teachers, there aren't enough books and classrooms for students to be able to attend school. Only 10% graduate high school, and we're changing that statistic. Educating girls through the high school level has the most impact in alleviating global poverty than anything. For the most part, it is an elder paternalistic dominated society. Girls are not given the opportunity to decide if they would like to pursue education versus marriage at an early age or pregnancy at an early age.
Some of them want to be doctors, some of them want to be teachers. You can't go wrong by teaching young people and educating them so that they have a chance in life.
I study physics, chemistry and biology so that I can be a doctor after finishing school.
The ripple effect is huge in Africa. Every little change makes a dramatic difference.
This has just been an amazing opportunity, and it's exciting to learn more about the Red Sweater Project and what they're doing here to help the kids, which ultimately helps the whole community. Red Sweater Project is a really special organization because of the really great people we have working for us.
I just feel like I have to help these kids to fulfill their dreams.
I can't go back and feel the same.
They're so proud to be in school. They want it more than anything.
And you get to be a part of truly the changing of so many kids' lives. Each day and each year we're able to fulfill more dreams because of the support of people like you.
We are the Red Rhinos.
So that's Red Sweater Project. That's what we've been doing. Does anybody have any questions?
Yay!
Yeah, I do have a question. I'm holding this phone because Microsoft apparently decided that Jolene's computer needed to be updated right in the middle of your presentation.
Oh,
So
good. Oh, that's great.
she's right here on the phone.
Oh,
And
hi, Jolene.
you.
You know, Jolene, I hear that's because usually Microsoft does it like that when there are people with added snark. So if you just tone that down a little bit, I hear that Microsoft kind of gets rid of those snags. Like they'll do it in the middle of the night instead.
That doesn't explain why Will's still here.
I feel like I know Jolene. So sorry, Jolene, if we don't know each other that well for me to make that joke yet, but.
Well, her response was, then how come you're still on?
Oh, there she is. Good
Yes.
one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Hey, maybe she's on a Mac rather than a PC.
Oh, I'm on a Mac and I'm still safe, but you're
Anyway.
muted, Jolene. So, or should I not tell you that you're muted because we can't hear you?
I'm unmuted now.
So back to my presentation. No, I'm kidding.
I'm gonna watch it on video. I'm gonna watch the last part on video because I was like writing down questions and all of a sudden my screen said, "Hi, you're gonna reboot now." And
Awesome.
that was it.
Very cool.
Sorry, it's not all about me, but I wanted to know, so just on the school part, how do you establish your curriculum? Is it set up by the government, or
So
are
it
you
is. We do have to follow the Ministry of Education and Vocational Training, like national secondary school curriculum, but we also supplement our own, and we often have volunteer teachers who come and will put together subsequent curriculum. Like, for example, Allison came and did our English immersion program, our EIP program, which is, so the students have to learn, primary school is all in Swahili. So they learn their tribal language at home. They learn Swahili in primary school, and then their secondary school is all in the English medium.
Wow. And secondary school starts at age?
Like 11, 12, 13, but we have, because age isn't a big thing as well as birthdays, because most of our kids don't know their birth dates, and they don't know where they were born because they were born on the floor of a mud floor of a boma, and they don't have a birth certificate. And their mothers say they were just born when it was a dry season, or
Yeah,
it was
right. Yeah.
whatever. We don't know, but some of our and often when we're doing registration, I'll get, Medoti will say I'm 14, and then the next year he'll say he's 16. I'm like, Medoti, you didn't age 2 years, because the boys always want to be older. So age is a little relative, and it's usually based on age groups. So usually when they go through, as Allison was talking about, like their circumcision ceremony, that's when they consider age groups. And so we'll have classrooms that have 11 up to even 16, 17 years old in one class.
Oh, okay. So,
but it's not like 17-year-olds are too cool to hang out with 11-year-olds. That's not really how kind of culture works there. So,
but you're dealing with kids really all the way through high school, what we would consider all the way through high school.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, question with you: given the traditional nature, certainly of the Maasai and of developing parts of Africa, how do you deal with this notion of educating the girls? Because that's normally needs to be sold to the chief or whoever is the cultural leader of that group. How do you
given? Yeah.
How do you
well,
get
the government, I try not to give the government too much credit, but they actually are doing a pretty good job of coming alongside and really trying to support female education. So when like these projects are a reflection of what the community has said they wanted to have, like they want to happen. So there's a mixture, think about how divided one country can be regarding something like COVID or like vaccinations or something, like just think of something. And so there's definitely like spectrums of very, where like, I definitely want to have my daughters educated, and no, I don't want to have my daughters educated. There are many polar opposites. And so again, kind of along the same lines, where we're not an organization that's just like, oh, you need this, or I'm going to come in. One of the things I will say is knowing the local language and being able to speak to elders, and being able to visit homes. And I go to every single student's home and I visit it, and I sit down with the parents and we talk about importance of education. But I leave it up to them. I'm not going to force their children into school, because that always works really well when you tell other people what to do with their children, right?
Yeah.
So
it's perfect.
So it's more of just like, this is a resource, and we hope that we will be able to encourage them through through proving that this works. And just this year, I hired my first graduating student as a teacher at the school.
Oh.
So it's coming full circle.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, that's one of hopefully many, many success stories, but that's the first example of a girl that's grown up in the community, has gone through our school program, has gone on to university, has even traveled to the United States and played on the national Tanzania national women's basketball team, and then came back and finished her teacher training. And I hired her in January.
Wow. That's awesome.
And that wouldn't be possible. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. But Brad, it's case by case, it's you hope that the opportunity is there, and you hope that they take it, and they hope they kind of look and, kind of want to see what's up and that they become interested.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Going back
to shove things down people's throats,
That only works for baby birds.
Yeah. Which we teach them in biology class.
I have a question regarding the age and the fact that you don't do placement by age. Like, so here we generally place students by age and then you progress on as you age. How do you decide where a student goes within the curriculum or where they should be if it's not based on age?
Yeah. So there has been, and there's a lot of answers to that. So I'll try to keep it brief. There's been a lot of change in the last 20 years. So 2002, that's when primary school fees were abolished and subsidized by the government. And so all of a sudden, millions of children were like, who were maybe 10, 11, 12, were like, I can go to primary school now. And so they started at like a first grade level. I mean, they couldn't read, couldn't write. And so they were very old, but there are these like statute of limitations, and they were able to enroll these very older children into these very young programs. You'll often, there's stories now of all these, like, you know, in all across sub-Saharan, like Africa, where like these grandmas are going into primary school now and they're learning how to read and write. And they're like, well, it wasn't available to me when I was a child. So, they're making movies about it and stuff now, about how they want these opportunities now. So that's one factor, is that just became financially available. And also the government has really tried to said, you need to, you know, made it law like we have here, you know, to send all children to school as much as possible. So that's one. Two, what happens often in these tribal communities, it is very typical for older males to marry younger girls. So you won't find like a 12-year-old boy marrying an 11-year-old girl. You're going to find a 20-year-old or 25-year-old man marrying a young girl. And that has to do with certain tribal rites of passages where they have to like skip generations. That's part of like the age groups. There's a whole formula. A lot of people think like, oh, these are very simple people. Like, there is very, very clearly defined, like your father, you have to skip a generation of your father's elder generation. And so you're his daughter, you can't marry within that age group. You have to marry from a younger age group and all this sort of thing. And these marriages are very like planned. Like, some of the girls will be even betrothed before they're even born. You know, these are family traditions, and we're grouping these bloodlines and these different clans. And so there's a lot that goes, it's not just like they just decide to marry an 11-year-old girl, like the father, the head of Laiboni, or Laigwanan, which is a leader in the village, comes to another gentleman and says, I see that your wife is round. And so if it's a girl, I'd like to join our families with my son, who's now 12 and who will be ready and have gone through his ceremony. And when your daughter, if future daughter is 11, then they will get married and our families will be, and we drink honey beer together. And it's this whole big thing. So the boys will often be herding cattle when they're young. And then when a younger sibling comes and is able to take over the cattle, because you have to be a certain age, you can't take over the large cows, you have to be a certain size to herd the cattle. Then that boy, who's now 8, can go to start primary school. So they start late, and so there's just this age, and so they just progress in the years. There's no sort of like, oh, you weren't born in this certain year, because they don't have birth certificates, they don't have addresses, there's no records. So they just say, this kid's starting school now. And often it will be at the decree of the father, who's like, okay, obviously the cows are our bank account, so that's what's most important. So we need to make sure that the cows are taken care of. Which is also part of the reason why we're doing our rabbit program, because I started working with some 4-H, like masters who have been involved in 4-H. And I totally poo-pooed the program initially. And then I was like, wait a minute. And they came out and showed me all the amazing benefits of raising rabbits, and how you don't have to tend to them all day. You don't have to herd them for 5 years, and, all the environmental degradation and the water and the famine. And when there's drought, you lose half your herd. We're like, here are rabbits, and you just literally give them pigweed and banana leaves, which we have 200 trees of on our campus. And here, you can take these home, and here's how we did it. And here's how you can expand this program and provide food so then they say, well, I can't have my son give up. He can't go to school. He has to watch the cattle. And we're like, sell the cattle and use the money to send your son to school. They don't really think that way. They love their cattle. So yeah, there's So anyway, there's lots of programs that we're working on to get, but that's part of, anyway, in a nutshell, the girls will start younger, the boys will start a little bit older, and they just progress through each class. And so it has nothing to do with like, oh, you're 15. It's like, oh, you just finished. So you have all these boys who are like super tall and they're like growing out of their primary school shorts next to these little girls who are, yeah, it's a very interesting a dynamic. So yeah. But it's not something that's really like, we have zero issues with like older, like just with the age range in the class. They're very, they're very familial and very helpful, and there's lots of siblings. And so it's not something that's really, we spend almost zero time with dealing with any sort of age issues or anything like that. It's people don't really, we are a culture that puts numbers on everything. They're not a culture. In fact, it's bad luck. So when you go and do a census, they don't like to count things because that's considered bad luck. So when you ask them how many cattle they have, how many boys they have, they like they don't want to give you numbers. So it makes census collection very difficult.
Husbands don't want to tell you how many wives they have because they might.
No. Well, some of them don't know how many children they have. I'm not kidding. They don't.
I mean, not your priority.
Yeah. Well, when you're not a math person and you never went to school, so when you have 4 wives and each of them, like, that's a lot of adding. Yeah. A lot of math.
So I was a late arriver. Is there a community, or what's the, I guess, boundary or definition of the community that the Red Sweater Project serves?
Okay, so we serve, so
have you thought about replicating this type of project in another community?
Yeah. So Mungere, we pull from like a 3-kilometer radius because we are a day school. Part of our focus is that we want the education to stay in the community versus a boarding school, which just adds on a whole other layers. And what they've found is that when you put like the textbook and resources in the hands of one sibling, that education kind of trickles down to the other younger siblings. We also hear very funny stories about whenever like parents will go to the market and they'll get those fun little very, very healthy, greasy pastries or whatever that you can get, and they wrap them up in a bunch of newspaper and whatnot to bring them home. They're actually asking for English newspapers instead of Swahili, so they can bring them home and they can hear their kids like read the English off the newspaper. Yeah. And well, it's actually starting to interfere with the students' education because the students will be studying and mom and dad will come in and they'll have some like either like some sort of solar product or something on their like smartphone or something that'll be in English. And they're like, tell me what this says, like we need you to translate this for us. Because anything on a device is not in Swahili. And so that's been really interesting to hear about how the students' proficiency has been impacting the families. But with regard to replication, that just requires a lot more resources and a lot more staff. I mean, I do hope that that's something, it would be great to have that initiative. I do get approached, but I think I'm looking at like, if we, it would be like, it'd probably an early death for me because it's a lot of work. I don't sleep a lot, but I'd love to replicate it. So we've done 2 schools now in 15 years. And we'll see if we do it again. It would be going to another community. I mean, I would like to be a structured path to do that. COVID really had us take a look at things and to see how, because obviously our funding is mostly from private donors and from foundations. But hopefully that's part of the reason why we started Red Rhino Tours, is that it can become a sustainable funding arm for us. Sans a global pandemic. Tanzania's, tourism is 20% of Tanzania's GDP. I mean, it's huge. It's very, very large. So
I was going to ask you actually, I was going to ask you what percentage, currently what percentage is of your funding comes from tours and what's your goal? Because there's like a couple of tour operators in the audience that you're talking to right now.
So actually we just officially launched in 2018. So we had actually just started booking our first like groups, and they were mostly volunteer service groups who were coming over. So right at this point, not large, because we're like pretty much 100% referral. So those who are coming on tour and saying this is amazing, you know, this is life-changing, and booking. So I don't know what percent, you know, we're hoping for necessarily, because obviously we want it to be sustainable, but that's been what's been interesting, has been obviously, you know, the global pandemic that surprised most folks. My sister's even an epidemiologist, so yeah. But even though it's been epidemiologists who have been warning, you know, since 20.
She knew, but she didn't know. Yeah,
she didn't know that it was that global travel would halt. So
so are you licensed and registered in the US to sell tours? Is that, I mean, are you that sophisticated at this point? Cool.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I want to ask one more question. I know, I mean, we're a little bit over, but so I know you kind of mentioned it's packets right now for students, like take-home packets, and they're
well, that was when we were closed, and then we reopened, and now just yesterday they closed schools again.
Oh, okay. So,
but this is but it's a good thing, because they're trying to get ahead of another wave. But that's because they're actually taking stats now, because the former president, who actually just passed away in March, we think of COVID, but they'll never admit it, was a COVID denier. And so Tanzania stopped reporting any of their statistics to the WHO or any other body in April of last year. And so there was zero statistics coming out of Tanzania. So we evacuated staff, school was closed, and then it reopened, and then we're just hearing this. It might be just temporary. I think it's just a precautionary measure. Just now I'm hoping, again, it's like day to day, that Tanzania will be one of those recipients of all of those millions of doses that are hopefully going to be coming out of the AstraZeneca COVAX.
The COVAX thing. I was going to ask you if they were part of the COVAX, if any vaccine had made it that far.
The government does not host press conferences. They give the information out as they feel. So, and I think that's out of respect of the and probably, you know, political strategy.
Sure.
Of the good memory of their former president. They're politicians are kind of their famous, you know, they want to they don't have movie stars and whatnot. So there's that's who splashes the front pages, is the politicians. And so
well, I mean, in general, it seems the vaccine's been pretty slow to roll out on the continent anyway. So I would imagine what has made it there has been pretty limited to certain echelons of society.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they might not even mention it. I mean, even the government had rolled out a type of you know, if you can pay for it, then we will find you a ventilator. And we have people and have staff who know how to use one.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a socioeconomic situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, which is interesting, because with Rotary, in regards to polio and all the other vaccines and that sort of thing, it's something.
The network is there if they can just get the shots in arms. Yeah.
But things are looking good. Things are looking really positive. We've got folks who are already booking tours and already making plans, including Rotary clubs and groups and stuff. So it's looking really positive. So we're really excited. Yeah. Okay, so we just put this up this month, and this is up in. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
So we just put this billboard up. It was a group effort up in near Vancouver, Washington, and so it got picked up by by Rotarians in Australia, and I think someone even sent it to the current Rotary president, Holger, I think is his name.
Holger, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's getting, you know, 45,000 views a day, up to 45,000 views a day. So pretty exciting. Anyway.
I'm pretty sure I saw that on Facebook too. So I was like, wait, I've seen that before.
Yeah, so that's my club.
I did. I saw it too. I didn't pay attention to who had posted it, but I saw the
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to tell them, and they are not going to believe it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's our little club in Battleground that's not named for battles. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, like I even just want to look it up because I remember looking it up and being because with that sort of thing, and like that sort of reason, and it was just like, yep, nope, like. Oh, well, it was a standoff. There was a standoff between the Klickitat peoples and the Vancouver barracks, but that was it. It was a standoff.
Yeah, it'd be really awkward to call a town standoff.
Battleground sounds much cooler.
Yeah, yeah.
So when the community, so at first, because we've already gone over, so I might as well tell you 2 sentences. When the community at Fort Vancouver discovered this escape, they assembled an armed contingent led by Captain William Strong, that's a name, to pursue the Klickitats. After great difficulty, Captain Strong's party found the Klickitats near the present-day location of downtown Battleground. And there was a standoff, and that was it. That was like, that's it.
Sounds like a dance.
Yeah, so that was it. But it doesn't say. Yeah, anyway. Settlers support, they named Strong's Battleground.
Well, they got to name it.
He wanted it. William Strong wanted a name, something.
He wanted a battleground, damn it.
He wanted a battleground and he got one.
Well, Ashley and Emily, thank you so much for your time. Emily, thank you for reaching out. This was a really great presentation, and I'm looking forward to posting this on our channel and sharing it through our newsletter too. To show our thanks, we are donating some polio vaccines in your name.
Oh, yay, wonderful.
Yeah, I'm not going to go over the spiel because you are a Rotarian, and you just shared the visual of vaccines work.
That's right. Vaccines work, and I love that it's the donation of that because it's like, wait a minute, we've been doing vaccines for a long time, so yay. Yeah. Well, thank you, and thank you so much for having us. And yeah, I think Emily put some little information in the chat box, but yeah, if you guys have any other questions or you're just stopping by Tanzania, come say hello. I always love to extend a welcome. Look at Jolene. Come visit.
It could happen. You just never know.
Yeah, that's why I always put it out there. But yeah, yeah, this is great. Thank you so much for having us.